Welcome to Rock That Relationship, a podcast about all things relationship with Corey and Tracy.
Now let's get real and start creating relationships that rock.
Welcome to Rock That Relationship. We're back with season 2 where we're talking about breakups. And again, we have been having some amazing conversations along the way about all different kinds of things as you might be navigating a breakup. This episode today, we're going to be talking about breakup truisms. It's the, relatively helpful advice that other people give you when they're feeling uncomfortable or not that they can, maybe they can't help you as you're struggling with maybe a new breakup or even a breakup that's been, a while going and they just kind of don't know what to say. But usually well-intentioned, but they come off as these pieces of advice that we call breakup truisms. So Tracy and I are going to spend some time this episode talking about what some of these are. Are they helpful? Are they not? What kinds of things can we glean from them? So without further ado, Tracy, I'm going to bring us into our very first set of breakup truisms we can talk about today. So this is one of my favorites, right? It just takes time truisms, right? This idea you just sit with yourself for a year and just take time for yourself before you go back out there, or time heals all wounds, or you'll eventually get over it. It just takes time. We've heard all different kinds of variations of that. What are your thoughts and experiences with this truism? Have you heard it? Does it work?
Oh, I've heard it. And I don't like it. I mean, I push back now because I say it's not just time, right? It will take time, but it also takes intention. And I think that it is well-meaning. People are just trying to help you. But the reality is you can't heal a broken heart with time. I just don't believe that. Yes, time can diminish the pain of it, but it's not going to heal it, right? Like if you're not really thinking about it, processing it, talking about it, going to therapy about it, time is just going to change that? Like, I don't get it. I understand that people are trying to be helpful, but I don't think it's helpful. I think it's really just adds to the sadness of it all.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, someone says to you, if you're hurting right now and it's like 2 days after breakup and they say, well, in a year, you'll feel better. I mean, that doesn't make me feel better because now I know that I have a whole year that I'm just going to feel terrible.
Well, exactly. Because what time anyway? Like, what does that mean? How there's that whole thing about, what is it? Like, oh, you're going to take half the time that the relationship was to heal. So if it was a year, it's going to be 6 months to heal or whatever. But as we've talked about before, it's like each minute of each hour of each day is like excruciating, right? So it's like, you don't want to think that you have to look ahead an entire year.
Right, exactly. Well, and, I agree with you in the part about the intention specifically. I do think time does diminish the pain, right? Because you end up getting into new habits, you end up getting, kind of new pieces of joy, things you sort of forget, right? As you move away, you forget a little bit. So that there's an amnesia effect that helps with that. But without intention, I think that it takes longer. I think it can. I mean, intention where you're really like confronting those feelings and you're really trying to make meaning of what might have happened and try to put closure on something. I think that can help the process in addition to this amnesia effect with time. So I think they work hand in hand, but I don't think time alone will heal all wounds.
No, did you know there's an Emily Dickinson poem about that?
Oh, is there really? What do you know what
they
it's called?
Say that time, well, yes, I used to know it by heart. I don't know if I know it, but they say that time assuages, time never did assuage, and actual suffering strengthens as sinews do with age. Oh, we talked about this poem once because we had a disagreement about it, but that's the thing she's saying, in my opinion. Like it's not time, right? It really, if time heals it, then maybe it wasn't there. Time will, yes, take the edges off, but I don't agree that it heals it. I'm on the side that it doesn't.
All right. And I'm on the middle side, right? Or I guess it's a middle side. Is that even a thing? I'm on the part where time does diminish the pain, but intention certainly helps heal the wounds. So let's move on to the next sort of set of truisms. This is another one I know I've heard a lot. The just move on truism, right? Like somebody else thinks that you've had enough time to process and that it's time for you to get back out there or to let it go or to just move on, right? Maybe somebody's done hearing you talk about it, or maybe they just think, hey, when I had a breakup after 3 months, I was fine. You should be fine too. What is it about the move on truisms that rings true for you?
Nothing. It makes me want to punch the other person in the face or tear my own hair out. I don't think it's
So
true.
a little bit of a reaction.
I actually had a reaction when you said it. I got really angry. It made me really angry because why? I mean, I get it. Okay. If somebody breaks up with you or if you're the breaker upper, but I don't like to think that like, yeah, okay, you do have to move on, but it's not just move on, right? Just move on, let it go. I mean, that diminishes the entire thing. I think I was listening to a book about heartbreak and how we don't really give it the, like, the respect it deserves. If you're going to go all in with a person, if you're like, I love you, I want to be with you and all that, you can't just turn that off. You can't just move on, let go. Like that seems it's actually enraging to me. It's so upsetting. Like, oh, I should just turn it off. Oh, okay. Like turning off the lights, like that's not how emotions work. And I think, when you're younger, in fact, I've seen this really up close and personal because I've been hanging around a lot of people in their 20s and they move on more quickly, right? But as you age, it's not such an easy deal and you no longer want to go through that, time after time again. And you want to take the time, I think, to sit and actually process what happened, how you could do better in the future, or how you may avoid, getting into this kind of situation. So yeah, that really irks me, that one.
Well, and as you're talking, there's two things I'm picking up. One is like having someone actually say this to you, I do find offensive, right? Well, like move on, but you're moving from what? Or letting it go. What actually are you letting go? Like the emotions, the relationship, the memories. I think it is a little bit, just kind of flippant when someone just says, oh, let it go. But I think if I were to say this to myself, like I want to actually move through the process of breakup, and I'm saying this truism to myself, I need to let it go. What does that actually look like? And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know.
I know what it looks like, Corey, because you remember when you were letting something go, you saw that Elsa doll in someone's garage. You saw you kept getting these signs of let it go. Like you actually saw like was it life size?
It was like a life size. Yeah, it was a life size Elsa doll.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Staring at you from someone's open garage. I mean, is there a better sign than that? And I think you also saw something else really weird, like let it go in writing or something. Like
I did. That is true. So I've had the message come to me, but internalizing it and saying, what does that actually look like? That's been the really hard part is what does it mean to let go? And then the kind of pressure I was putting on myself, like, am I not letting it go fast enough? Am I not letting it go wholeheartedly enough? What am I not letting go? What am I still holding on to? And then it's creating this like sense of anxiety about what does it actually mean to let it go. And so, I do remember that life size Elsa doll. It was very scary, actually.
Yeah, there were a couple things that happened, but that's the thing about like, okay, so somebody like you versus somebody like me, what you just said, like, am I not doing it fast enough? Am I doing this? I mean, you went through a whole process, right? Like of things to do, like, which we need to write up as a checklist. Like, it's very good and really helpful, but it's like, it puts pressure on to say, well, what does that mean? And I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with letting people go. I guess I'm just not like that. Again, I am the hopeless romantic and I really like to process stuff. I really like to talk about stuff and I don't like to let people go out of my life unless it's really a horrible situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for me, I struggle with just what does it even mean to let it go? And I had someone tell me recently, I've had two people actually tell me recently that, one of the things that they know about me or have noticed about me is that I love really hard. Like I love really deep and I love really hard. That's not just partners, it's family, it's friends. Like I'm all in. But when I get hurt like at a level at which is almost incomprehensible to some people who might not let themselves love to the depth that I go. And I've been told this over and over. And, so my heartbreak is commensurate to the depth of the love that I put in. And so, and it's not that other people don't put that in. It's just that people say, wow, I can't believe you just love so hard. And so when I let it go, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with that. Like, I have to not only like try to figure out how to move on, but also try to figure out how to move on without being guarded in the next way, so that I'm not so protective of my heart. And again, love hard again. So kind of an interesting thing. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Let's go to the distract yourself truisms. These are the, you just need to stay busy, find a new hobby. Didn't you always want to play ... like you, Tracy, didn't you always want to play pickleball more? For me, this was even a truism I said to myself, like, oh, just stay busy and you won't even think about it. And, here I am with like piles full of old Legos from my childhood, building, something every single night with my Legos, thinking this is going to get me through this heartbreak is my Legos, and my Legos did not get me through my heartbreak. But, so what about you? Does staying busy help?
Yes, it helps. That's what I was going to say. The Legos helped you, right? I mean,
yeah.
It helps. It doesn't take it away, but it helps. And that's the thing, is that we need to be distracted, especially if the breakup wasn't our choice. What are we going to do? Go insane? I mean, seriously, like go insane. And what I recently did was get a puppy. And that still, as much as work that is, it actually hasn't distracted me. So yeah, I mean, it's better than just sitting there, right? Boo-hoo, crying in your bed. It definitely feels better to be busy. And I think that that's part of intention, is like, if you don't have a choice in the matter, you have to move on with your life. And part of that is that, but my best friend always says that to me, just stay busy. That's what I do. Stay busy. And there is a lot. I think that is one of the better ones, even though it's annoying. It doesn't raise the anger in me that let it go does, because it actually does help, right? It really does. Like, I've done some volunteer, lawyer stuff and things like that, where you're around people that really, I think if you're talking about that, like people who are in a worse off situation than you are, that helps too, right? So not only are you busy, but you're also busy doing something where you're seeing somebody that's got it worse than you. And, comparing is despairing, of course, but in the world, there are things that are worse. And it does feel good to actually help those people. So by alleviating some of their suffering, you're alleviating yours. I mean, I did throw myself into pickleball. And then I have to also pull back and say, what am I spending all this time for? Like, am I going to become a pickleball champion? No. Am I going to be on the retirement circuit? No. Am I, you know what I mean? So it's like, how much are you not thinking? But I would get done with pickleball, and then I would get in my car and drive home in the dark and hear a sad song, and I'd be exactly back where I was before,
Right. So the idea of staying busy can distract you while it's happening, but the quiet times, right? The quiet in-betweens don't necessarily feel better.
They don't change. There's less of them, but I do think that it's the quality of what you're doing. So if you are going to stay busy, I really do think helping others, like it changes your like perspective. I think so if you are going to stay busy, have it be something that's either something that you want to do forever and you really are going to like become, a champion of something, or that you're helping people. I mean, do both, right? Fill up all your time if you need to fill up your time, because it's not like it goes away. When you're in your car, you're still thinking about it. When you're in your shower, you finally lay down in your bed, you're still thinking about it.
Right. Well, and I think the other thing too is, as you're saying about staying busy, it is distracting. But it's also helpful to help others through your busyness. But also the thing that really helped me was it wasn't just the staying busy. It wasn't filling my dance card. It was mostly the fact that I got out there and met new people. So I forged new connections. So I didn't just fill my time, but I filled my heart with new people that mattered to me. Right. And so I was busy. Not only was I just busy doing something, I was busy making new friends and finding connection. And so that for me was something that really worked.
And, that's, again, we've talked about this before, but that was the genesis of this podcast, was our nonstop walking. And we were in different positions, where I was in a relationship and you were out of one. And now I've been out of one and you're in one. And, the other person is helping the sad one, right. Like we need it. And we're having to hike while we do it. So it's great for us, it fills two things, right? We're all about feeding multiple birds with one scone. Like we just keep doing, right? It helps. But
yes. And I love the fact that you're feeding birds scones.
exactly. I'm not throwing rocks at
scones.
them like
Yes, you're
some
feeding
people do.
scones. Exactly. All right, cool. Well, it seems like
Exactly.
that's a truism we both, sort of see that definitely has some merit to it. What about this one? The you are better off truisms, like the you can do better than that person, or this is my favorite. I never liked that person anyway, or you deserve better. Have you heard any of those before? And like, what is your reaction to those?
Yes, I have heard them, and it depends on the relationship I just got out of. Sometimes it does infuriate me, and it also makes me sad because, I think here's one thing. I don't know if we have it, if this ties in, but it's like you need to get angry. You need to be angry, So it's kind of that thing like, oh, that person was no good for you anyway. Be angry. And if I loved someone, if I was with someone, then why do I want to feel that way? I don't know. I have really conflicting feelings about that. I mean, I've been angry a lot in my life, so it's not like I'm, not been an angry person, but it's like if I really love someone, I just don't have those feelings, So it's hard to say when someone says that to me, it's really hurtful,
Right, right. Well, and I've had people say, for various people, not even just breakups with partners, but even like friends I'm no longer friends with, or just people, well, I never really liked that person. And I'm thinking, well, you never said anything to me. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I figured that you were friends with them, or I figured you were dating them, or I figured hanging out with them or working with them on a project that you liked them. So I never wanted to say anything, but I didn't like them. So you're better off now because I didn't like them. So therefore you shouldn't like them. And therefore it's okay to be upset. And I think that's really interesting. Or that you deserve better, which is a little bit less harsh than that, which is, usually it's not you deserve better because the person was not good, but maybe you deserve better because the way that person treated you was not really ideal.
Treatment.
And yeah, more of like their behaviors, not who they are. Someone to me is a little bit less offensive. And sometimes I say to myself, I deserve better. Right. But, I think coming from someone else, this is one that really gets under my skin is, this kind of idea that someone else can judge what I need and my judgment. Like I clearly was, if I would say I was in a relationship with someone, I clearly loved that person. So what does it say about my judgment when you say like, you can do better? It says, well, you're a terrible picker at people to date or to be friends with or work with or whatever. And so that to me, this one kind of, gets to me a little bit just because I think, again, it's well-intentioned. Like I'm right there with you. You're a great person and they're not. But really what it's saying to me is you're really bad at picking people to be around.
Well, yes. And it is well-intentioned, but it's also that it's sort of black and white thinking. Like people are complex, right? And it is unfair also because when we're in relationships, we kind of bitch to our friends about things we're unhappy about. And so, they get like a less well-rounded view of the person, right? And relationships are so complex that it really is true. It's hard to say unless there's like serious abuse and like a psycho or something, you know what I mean? That it's hard to say like it's all one person or whatever. It's like so many moving parts have to go together that I have heard that, and it makes me, I guess, more sad. I get it. And, here's something like when people say these things to you, you can say, I really appreciate your intention, but that actually makes me kind of feel worse. I told you what I had to say to my friend who was kind of diminishing my relationship to try and help me move on. And I wrote her a really long text and I was like, look, that actually doesn't help me. It really actually hurts me. And it's not going to help me move on faster. In fact, probably make me more resistant. And it's just it's hurting me. It's like adding additional hurt, like I know it's annoying to hear me whine and cry and the same thing for months on end, but that will end if I'm allowed to have my process,
Right. Exactly. Well, let's flip it around then. The opposite of the you can do better kind of thing is the silver lining truisms. Like this is going to be a good thing for you in the long run, or, hey, now you can focus on all the things you wanted to do. Like you like your career, you can spend more time and do that. Or, this is a little bit less than about like hobbies and things like pickleball, but more like bigger things like, now you can travel the world like you've been wanting to do. And I know the person you're with didn't want to travel, or, all this stuff. So this is a good thing. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm kind of conflicted on this one, where I feel like, yes, that's true, because it does kind of end up being true, unless you really don't, you're just so incapacitated by grief or by whatever that you can't move on, or, I think for me, I'm able to do both, right? I can be sad and yet, okay, I have all this time now to do the things that I said I was going to do or wanted to do. And, for me, in this last 6 months, I've done so many things different, got a new job. I really got competitive into pickleball and things like that. And you and I start a podcast, and, I'm starting to write my books and stuff like that. So yeah, I do actually kind of agree with that one, but everything that you agree with still kind of cuts you. What is that death by 1,000 cuts? It's like, okay, that still hurts, but it's true, and again, if it's not your choice and you just have to get on with life, so it's kind of that stuff you talk about, law of attraction, or focusing on the positive, but you can't do anything about the situation. So you might as well focus on the positive. You might as well focus on the good things,
Right, right. Well, and I think for me, I would rather hear this, right, than I never liked that person or whatever it might be that's negative. I'd definitely rather hear this, but I'd rather hear it more in the form of a question than a statement. Like, now, I mean, this is really difficult for you. This is really, you're really, a really challenging, tricky time. And I understand it's really hard. Are there things that maybe you wanted to do that you can do now that you weren't, pursuing before, that, and you're like, yeah, my ex didn't like to travel, or my ex, I spent all my time that I never had a chance to write my book or whatever. And have it more be like my discovery of that, rather than someone saying, well, now this is a good thing. No, it's not a good thing. I'm heartbroken. It doesn't feel like a good thing. So I think for me, asking it in the form of a question, like, I'm okay with someone saying, what, I know that this is really hard, but what might be some positive outcomes of this? I'm okay with that, because I like looking at things from a positive lens. So for me, I think that's how I would want this to be framed.
I like that. That's really a good way to put it, right? They can still try and help you, but phrasing it that way to get you thinking, right? Because also something I did learn in my prior marriage that I did not put into place until after is, you say things to people that makes them automatically defensive. And now you've lost, you've lost what you've been trying to do if you put them on the defensive right away.
Yeah.
And if you're not asking them, if you're just saying, get over it, find this, or look at the silver lining here, then you're like, I don't want to see the silver lining. I hate the silver lining.
Exactly. Exactly. Feels like a rain cloud. Don't you tell me what to do. But maybe if I were to say something like, I've got a little bit more time on my hands than I had before. Maybe I'm going to focus on this one project that I've been wanting to do. And then I have the aha. I think that helps. All right, let's look at
it's like reframing. It's reframing and then asking the person versus telling them.
Exactly.
Which I think that is so helpful. We need to preach that message, and I need to learn it. I'm not saying I don't, because I'm one of the first people to blurt out, because I've said all kinds of crazy shit to you. Crazy stuff to you. Like, get over it. Let's keep hiking.
Right.
Trying to be helpful, but being a bossy jerk. And it's well intentioned, but I like that, where you can say, hey, ask the person a question instead. How do you feel about having all this extra time? What could you do with that? I think that's very cool.
And that could also fall under that other truism of you've got distract yourself, that could be, instead of saying stay busy, you say, you have some time. Is there something that, a hobby you wanted to pick up, or can I go with you? Or, hey, I know you mentioned to me before, you've always wanted to try, to play tennis, and I play tennis. Do you want to go play? So those kinds of things where you can shift it. But the truisms themselves, that these are somehow magical bullets to help you get over someone with just boom, just a flick of a switch, it isn't necessarily true. Now let's get into the next, the very last one here. This one's probably one of the more common ones we hear, which is the find someone new truism. Here's a couple of them. There are other fish in the sea. And then this one too, the best way to get over someone is to get under someone, like, literally put yourself out there, get back on the dating site, get back on the horse, like all those things. Basically just get out there and find somebody new quickly. What are your thoughts on that?
That makes me throw up. I just got very faint. I feel very sick. I've heard that several times recently. And okay, again, in my 20s, I would have been like, exactly, let me get out there. And now I'm like, oh, nope, nope. That to me sounds like an absolute nightmare, because you're not processing. You're just trying to replace one thing with another. I don't think it's healthy.
Well, yeah. And the whole idea of this other, like there are other fish in the sea. I'm sad about my fish. I can't think about the fact that I'm swimming in a tank full of other fish. I'm sad about my fish, and I need to be sad about my fish for a long time, however long it takes me. And then when I'm not sad anymore about my fish, I might notice other fish, but I'm not going to go just find other fish just so that I don't feel sad about my fish. And, that's the part that's really hard, because I think it's easy, right? When we look at compartmentalizing our feelings, we say, all right, I feel sad and hurt about this particular incident, right? Or this situation, this breakup. I'm going to sit that over in box A. Oh, look at that person over there. They seem nice. They're going to fill my time. They're going to distract me. They're going to have all these things. They're going to fill all these other truisms. And then I can have box B, where I have all my feelings and emotions for them, but I've never dealt with box A. It's just still sitting there. So for me, I don't want to go into box B without dealing with box A.
I agree. And I'm not sure we should use boxes in this particular example. That could be construed in a certain way, but it is true. Like, I've been told that so many times. Just get over it. Just that, I can't even say it. The best way to get over someone is get under someone else. That is just nauseating to me.
Yeah.
It is nauseating to me. It just seems like now the worst advice on earth.
Right. And well, and the question is it distracting? Yeah, probably a little bit in the short term. Does it fill your time? Yeah, probably in the short term it does. And some people can move pretty quickly from one thing to another. And, but again, I feel like I can't focus on moving on to someone new until I have processed what I was going through with the breakup. All right. So let's talk about some kind of real truisms. Those other ones are the issue with the truisms we talked about. One is, to what extent do they have merit in helping with a breakup, right? But two is, what is it like to receive those when someone tells you them as opposed to asking you or whatever? So there's two elements of truisms. One is it really helpful? And two, what's it like when someone says it to you? But let's look at these real truisms. Some of these things that we know from our experiences that really have helped, right? And some of the things that we just need to keep in mind. And so, this is one that really hits with me, is it'll probably suck, at least for a while, even if the breakup was ultimately a good thing, right? It's just gonna feel yucky. And I was listening to this great podcast this morning, and it was talking about how, this idea of pain is, we do everything in our human power to alleviate pain. And we will do whatever it takes. And so we'll move on, we'll distract ourselves, we'll try to, whatever it is. But in the end, for me, it's like, I kind of have to feel that pain. I need to go through that pain. I know that it's going to be painful, but it'll probably be less painful. And as I intentionally do things to help, and some of like those truisms we talked about, some of the merit behind those in helping with intention, right? Like this idea of finding hobbies, meeting new people and connections, feeling all your feelings, those kind of things really do help with intention. And so, but understanding and acknowledging that it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt for a while, and you're going to cry maybe, and you're going to complain to your friends, and it may be for 2 weeks, it may be for 2 months, and it may be for 2 years. I was in a healing circle after one of my breakups, and somebody was like, crying, and they're there every week. It was my first time there. And she was like, he left me. And someone said, well, how long ago was that? And she said, 8 years.
How many?
8.
8. Wow.
8 years. And and my first instinct was, oh my gosh, I don't want to be there in 8 years. I do not want to be in this healing circle in 8 years. But the other part of me thought, well, this is her process. And if she's still crying in 8 years, she's got to go through her own process. And then when she's done crying, she's really going to be done crying. So So that's one. What about something for you? What's a truism that really is true for you?
I think it just piggybacks on that one is you have to just feel everything, right? Like
Yeah.
embrace the suck. That's usually about exercise, but I think it's about breakups too, especially if you're not the one who did the breakup. There is nothing you can do, and you just have to feel your feelings about it. I did go to a rage room at one point, and I found that very cathartic, but that was cathartic for 10 minutes, or 20 minutes, however long we were in there. You've got to feel what I just don't, I don't believe you should cut off your feelings to make other people comfortable or to, follow some fake timeline. Like just feel what you feel and start dating when you feel like you want to date, not when other people are telling you. People just love to tell you to go out and date, So I think you just have to do what feels right to you. And if you're not getting support from certain people, then find other people. You know what I mean? Find other ways to get support. Like you did a healing circle, you found a breakup coach, you did all these things. They're out there. The podcasts, we both listened to all the podcasts. We listened to, books on tape, like whatever we had to do to feel, to process that, I mean, I know 6-8 months later, I'm still very, very much in pain, but I'm processing through it and it's helping me in many ways. Not that I would choose it ever, and I don't want to choose the silver lining situation, but we have to deal with what we get. We deal with the cards we're dealt in life, and that's just it. And, that's another thing for me that's a truism is don't block it out. Don't use, vegan ice cream. Don't use alcohol. Don't use drugs. Don't use, stuff that's not going to be helpful. I don't want to wake up 20 pounds heavier and then have to work on that too. Like I'll just sit there and feel the horrible feelings. And then I call you or I text you and tell you how I'm feeling or text my best friend and tell her how I'm feeling. All that stuff. Like it's just, I think it moves us along in the healthier way.
Right. Well, someone said
remember, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, someone said to me early on to piggyback on that, just feel it until it's all been felt. And you're the only one who's going to know when it's all been felt. And no one else can tell you that you should be done feeling right now.
Well, and remember, like the 80s movies, like what was the big famous one, St. Elmo's Fire? I mean, that's what I grew up with. Like, oh, go with all your girlfriends and get drunk. I mean, maybe that's cool in your 20s, but it is not cool in your 50s, and I don't think it's cool in your 40s or your 30s. And it doesn't help. It really does not help. It's very temporary relief.
Right. Well, and a lot of the things that people choose that are unproductive behaviors are things to mask the feelings, right? Because as I said before, nobody wants to feel pain, and we'll make that pain go away. And some people want it to go away quickly. Some people will move on to substitute so that they don't feel the pain. Some people will mask it and cover it up. And I'm not saying that you just like sit in a corner and, for like 6 months and just feel sad and cry. But at the same time, like if you feel like you need to cry, cry. If you feel like you need to be upset, be upset. Just if you feel like you're sad or hurt, or if you feel like you want to be reminiscent, this is the thing that confuses me. Like, what about the times like, that I actually miss an ex and I pull out pictures and I miss them, for me, that's totally different. Like I'm upset, I'm sad, I'm whatever. And then I'm nostalgic, right? Then I'm nostalgic and it's okay. All of those things are okay. It's just, you feel it until it's all been felt. And the other thing with that too is that there's going to be setbacks and triggers and relapses, right? It's like, you're moving and chugging along and you're filling your time or you've gotten into your pickleball or whatever. And then all of a sudden there's a post on social media or
Facebook brings up your old memories and you're oh my Lord, that's like,
right,
a slap in the face, right?
Or you're going through a drawer and you find an old favorite t-shirt. I mean, there's all sorts of things that will be setbacks. And guess what? It's okay to feel what you're feeling. So if you felt like you had sort of moved on and then all of a sudden you're sad again and you're crying and you need to go back to the healing circle, guess what? Go back, do what you need to do. Feel it until it's all been felt. And just know that pain will eventually go away. Hopefully that's the plan, with a great deal of intention and with some time. All right. Well, We are just about out of time. Tracy, yet another wonderful conversation about breakup truisms, what helps, what doesn't, at least in our mind. And I guess the bottom line is for all of you out there is you got to figure out what helps for you. What are your truisms? What are the things that you've been told that you think work? What are the things that you've been told that you're not a real fan of? And they may be different than ours. But the idea is that as you're going through a breakup is to sit and think, what are those truisms that really work for you? What are the ones that don't? And maybe that'll help you as you navigate through your own heartache. So thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to having you back for our next episode. And until then, go out there and rock those relationships. If you liked what you heard, check out our show notes for resources from today's episode. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram under Rock That Relationship, and go to our website at rockthatrelationship.com for updated episodes and more great information.
Thanks for listening. Now go rock those relationships.